Thanks everyone for joining. This is the first GRT participants call. We're going to be reviewing the last quarter. So thanks everyone for joining. As discussed, this will be a recorded call. It will be shared afterwards. There's a question document where you can submit any questions that you have during the course of this presentation, and we will answer those at the end. So thank you all so much. So what is the purpose of this call? So this is the very first one. It will happen quarterly, and we're super excited to kick it off. So within the Graph ecosystem, we're always shipping now across many core devs, which is very exciting. So the purpose of this call is to really summarize the quarter and also give you a look into what's coming down the pipeline. And this is really tailored to those participating in the Graph network using GRT. So a quick disclaimer, there are no forward-looking statements in this presentation. A quick introduction on myself. So I'm Tegan Klein. I'm a co-founder of Edge and Node. We are now one of the very many core developers within the Graph ecosystem. And at Edge and Node, our mission is to really help provide people with tools to help solve the world's most pressing problems. And the Graph is one of those tools. As you know, it's very important to be able to access information that is verifiable. This is a crucial component of the internet and the future of information. I started my career in investment banking at Bank of America and then moved over to sales and trading at Barclays. And about 6 years ago, I saw the opportunity to create a new internet and a new financial system using Ethereum. And I started my journey by joining an Andreessen Horowitz-backed blockchain project. I helped to launch that project on Ethereum. And so I knew kind of firsthand how difficult launching an application back then was, not only to build it, but also to use it. So I kind of took a step back and looked to the infrastructure layer to provide a foundation to this new ecosystem that we're building with Web3. And I joined the Graph ecosystem over 2 years ago to make it possible for these applications to deliver on the promises that they made and continue to make today. And the Graph makes it 10 times easier to build an application on top of blockchains. About the same time that I joined that application on Ethereum, 3 brilliant engineers, Yaniv, Brandon, and Giannis, they also set out to build an application on Ethereum, but they quickly realized, given their experience in developer tooling, that the infrastructure was not ready. And so what did they do? Did they go back to building tools in Web 2 that were then acquired by large monopolies dominating the SaaS industry? Of course, they didn't. They set out to build the Graph, and that's really when the Graph was born in 2017. And the Graph is really a pioneer within the Web3 space. So Web3 is a brand new platform for truly decentralized applications to live. And Web3 is a very large umbrella that encompasses DAOs, DeFi, NFTs, metaverse, gaming, you name it. And the Graph is really working to ensure Web3 becomes easier to build on and the applications become easier to use than the centralized applications you use today on your smartphone. And back in 2017, many really cringed at the term Web3, and we've come very far from those days where now it is what everyone wants to talk about, and everyone's very excited about Web3. And the Graph really kind of contributed to reviving Web3. And unlike many in the space, we're not here to tell you that Web3 will become the future of the internet. We're here showing you. So what is the Graph? The Graph is a default part of the stack. The Graph is open verifiable data. So you have the blockchain layer at the bottom, you have contracts on top of that, and then the subgraph, which is provided by the Graph to developers, sits on top of those contracts, and then the UX and UI exists on top. And the Graph is this global open API. That's kind of become the backbone of these applications within the Web3 space. So DeFi DAOs, entertainment, places, NFTs, marketplaces, you name it, many use cases. So before we get too far into the weeds, I just really want to welcome the new contributors to the Graph ecosystem. So the Graph Foundation confirmed a $50 million strategic sale back in January, and this was 300 million oversubscribed. And so only 50 million was done. And so why did these 5 funds make the cut into this strategic sale? So this was really to kind of showcase that the Graph is beyond, Web3 and the Graph are beyond just this small niche crypto group. welcoming funds like Tiger Global, FinTech Collective, Reciprocal Ventures into this round, really showcasing that this is beyond this small niche and it really is becoming the future of the internet. And then Fembushi, OGs in the space, really helping to accelerate the adoption of the graph within Asia, and Blockwall accelerating graph adoption in Europe. So a warm welcome to these new GRT participants. And with this, just kind of diving into the Graph's hosted service. So 2 years ago, it was just 2 networks. It was Ethereum and IPFS. And since the Graph ecosystem has really added support for many different chains on the Graph's hosted service. So there are 32 chains now. And double clicking into this, we've really kind of been aggressive with this multi-blockchain strategy. And when we decided to go this multi-blockchain strategy, it was really kind of against the norm. Back then, it was very tribal. It wasn't common that folks were thinking about multi-blockchain. And now I think that that's really shifted and we're really in this multi-blockchain future. And it's really nice to be a part of an ecosystem that is very welcoming and kind of uniting the ecosystem, the Web3 space together. And so the Graph's been very aggressive in adding support for layer 2s like Optimism, Arbitrum, sidechains like Polygon, and of course, layer 1s like Near, Celo, Phantom, and many others. So the Graph continues to decentralize even core developers and dev shops. So unlike Web 2, where companies exist on top of protocols, really extracting value from their users, Web 3, companies exist in the context of protocols, where it's kind of more positive sum as opposed to more zero sum. And today there are over 5 core developers, companies that exist within the context of the Graph protocol, which is really exciting. It allows us to ship much more quickly. And so you can see some of the projects that the core developers are working on here. So Figment is really focused on the Cosmos integration. So expect that soon. At Edge and Node, we're working on verifiable queries, the decentralized network with product parity with the hosted service, and really focused on migration when it comes to migrating Ethereum subgraph developers and projects to the decentralized network, along with many others across the ecosystem. Semiotic is focused on the automated dispute resolution and verifiable queries using zero knowledge proofs. The Guild is working on schema stitching and also subgraph cross-chain composability, which has been very requested across the developer ecosystem. Streaming Fast is working on the Solana integration. It's no small feat. They're also working on substreams and the Firehose implementation. And ChainSafe is working on the Arweave integration. So expect that to come soon as well. When it comes to growth, really growing, we've seen incredible growth, which really speaks to not just the growth of the Graph, but also the growth of Web3 adoption across all of these different chains and protocols. You can see that there are now over 32,000 lifetime developers building across the hosted service and the decentralized network. There might be more than that, but we wanted to be as honest as possible because there is quite a bit of overlap between the two. And then when it comes to queries, so this is, think of like search or pings, there's been over 560 billion lifetime queries on the Graph's network across the hosted service and the decentralized network. And we're seeing quarter over quarter growth. And then lifetime subgraphs. So over 52,000 subgraphs on the network. This is kind of a proxy for applications, though applications can have more than one subgraph. Seeing strong growth quarter over quarter there as well. So the Graph's decentralized network, this is really what it's all about. The hosted service is out, the decentralized network is in. The decentralized network right now just supports Ethereum. We're working on multi-blockchain support, so expect that to come soon. And then you'll notice that we've really stopped sharing statistics around the hosted service, and that is very much intentional. It's really all about the decentralized network. Even though both are growing quickly, we really want to focus on the network. And so the Graph's decentralized network powers many different use cases and applications today. So all of these applications that you see on the screen here are paying in GRT for queries on the decentralized network. And that's happening across websites and protocols, NFTs, DAOs, DeFi, you name it. It's really exciting. A few to highlight here. Artblocks is a generative NFT platform. Juicebox DAO, they did the Constitution DAO and the Assange DAO. Proof of Humanity snapshot, the Web3 index is also now powered by the Graph's Decentralized Network, Sushi, APY Vision, Beanstalk. And here you can see some testimonials. So Beanstalk said, we just want to say we've seen a massive uptick in traffic and our subgraph queries have not failed or slowed down at all. It feels like query speed has actually increased despite the fact that we are querying more data and more often, and querying that data more often, which is impressive. The level of support, resilience, and progress towards future further decentralization is world-class. Emblem said, I thought that publishing our subgraph to the decentralized network would be difficult, but we went from the hosted service to the decentralized network in under half an hour. It's a good feeling to be able to credibly say that our DApp isn't dependent on a centralized API like it used to be. Clero said migrating subgraphs to the Graph's decentralized network not only resulted in faster indexing and better query resolution performance, but it also gave us peace of mind that this core element of the application will not be a single point of failure. And these are some notable subgraphs that migrated over the last quarter. So Web3 Index, Beanstalk, APY Vision, Prima, Sushi, Yearn, Snapshot, POAP, which is an NFT project. And the network continues to grow when it comes to indexers, delegators, curators, and subgraphs. A big shout out to all the curators that are curating on these subgraphs as they migrate to the decentralized network. And the stake continues to increase, a really healthy stake across the indexers, but also the delegators, like many of you on this call, helping to secure the network. There's currently 2.8 billion GRT staked within the protocol. So one thing to highlight here is around query fees. I know a lot of you have asked for the chart. You want to see like more queries on the Explorer. So one thing to note is the Explorer only shows query fees that indexers redeem. And because indexers pay gas costs, they are closing those query fees. They're closing less frequently. And so the solution, we're working to lower the costs of closing allocations and incentivize indexers to close those allocations more frequently. And with that, there are actually a few GIPs that are going through the process currently that can help with this. These are the 4 GIPs that are currently going through the proposal process. So just so you know, these are voted on by the community, and then the council, which oversees the foundation, which is a 10-person council, they vote those GIPs into the protocol if the community has support for them. So GIP 25, this will utilize layer 2 technology to reduce gas costs for developers, which will further the Graph's lead as one of the more cost-efficient indexing protocols. GIP 26, so curators in the curation process, this upgrades the curation process and decreases the front costs of indexers and curators. So this increases the profitability for all participants, including delegators like many of you on this call. GIP 27, this directs rewards to active indexers and decreases reward for those inactive participants. So anyone that could potentially like harm the protocol by not being an active indexer, this GIP focuses on that. And then GIP 28, subsidized query settlement. This combines the steps to collect indexer rewards and query fees into one order to continually to capture more accurate economic data within the network. The Graph website went global, so it's now available in 7 languages. This was really exciting to see the community with people all across the world come together to help translate the website. Really exciting to see that. And I will pass it over to Eva to give you an update on the roadmap and other things happening within the Graph ecosystem. If we have Eva on the call.
Okay, there we go. Wasn't able to unmute. Thank you, Tegan. Next slide. So talking about our roadmap. So one of the most exciting things that happened this past quarter was, all the core devs coalescing around what does that united roadmap and mission look like. So we're really excited to announce that we have 5 very distinct working groups in our ecosystem that all of our core devs, so our 5 core dev teams, are working cross-functionally within these. So first off, data and APIs. This is everything graph node, really improving the API interface and making it easy to index and improve the performance of that index data. The Snark Force, so really excited to announce, we have 2 teams, the semiotic team and the edge and node team, that are dedicating cryptography resources to basically enable verifiable indexing and querying. It's what we've wanted all along, and having a team dedicated to that is really going to set us up for that success. And we have ongoing research on these ZK snarks going on. So if you are able or interested to provide peer review, please reach out. The third working group, protocol economics. So this is all the fun stuff, including delegation and indexing parameters, curation. We have a lot of improvements that, we've heard the feedback from our community in the forum on how to make curation delegation much more user-friendly. So working on those. Protocol network operations. So this is, everything related to instrumentation and tooling, making it easier to access Firehose and other components. And lastly, indexer experience. So making it easier for indexers, node operators, to actually provide services in the network. And really, we don't have, a timeline, but we wanted to bring this roadmap to life to show all the really cross-functional elements that we're working on, what it takes to build the graph and the graph's vision, and then also where other folks can get involved. So as you take a look at that roadmap, if you have ideas or you want to contribute, please reach out through our grants program. Getting more specific, so as Tegan mentioned, migration is definitely the #1 priority, and we have several of our core devs also helping with that. So depending on the chain that you're building a subgraph on, you may be working with, a different core dev or another contributor in our community. We're continuing to add that network support. So Cosmos is right on deck, and Solana and Arweave also up next. Continuing to drive for that NFT metadata use case. So, we definitely are able to serve several NFT use cases, including art blocks and NFT marketplaces, but we want to make sure that all are covered. So we're doubling down on how to make metadata more accessible and making it easier to index, so applications that want to see the NFT itself are able to use the graph seamlessly. Continuing to educate our indexers on Firehose. So we've got a lot of improvements trying to make Firehose more standardized across protocols. So every indexer that wants to run Firehose for a new chain can do so in a standardized manner. Getting them more involved in our graph governance. So we're starting to really amplify, how can our indexers and delegators provide feedback in our forum. So if you have those GIPs Tegan mentioned, we're getting that feedback directly from our community. So again, if you have any comments on specific GIPs coming up, please do follow up in the forum. And lastly, liquid staking. So we have quite a few grantees since last year that have been building liquid staking platforms. This includes Tenderize and Claystack. And we're starting to see that ramp up more with new projects coming on front. The Graph Advocates program was another gem of our Q1. So we launched an advocates program similar to an ambassador program to get new community members and existing community members to really be empowered to participate in our community and lead initiatives, take charge of grants, things like translations, events. And we launched this program in February. And then later in March, we announced that this program is actually turning into a DAO. So really excited to see the progress so far. This really was a decentralized experiment from the bottom up, where the advocates from the program, the initial cohort, were actually the first members of the DAO, and they're the ones that are currently interviewing new members and are setting the standards. So things like the rules and parameters of the DAO itself. So really excited to see this, our first decentralization experiment in action, and we look to do more of this throughout the year. On the DAO front, so the DAO received $250,000 worth of GRT as a grant to start. The intent is that the DAO, as the advocates program itself grows, feels empowered to ask for more funding, either from the council or from other outside sources. And really the goal is not only for this DAO to take over the advocates program, but also take over all community grants. So this whole category that the foundation and council have been overseeing the past year, we think it needs to belong in the hands of the community. We want to make people feel empowered in the way that they review applications and can apply for things, that maybe they felt they couldn't through the foundation. And we want to encourage, our advocates and other community members to actually work for the DAO itself too. So again, this is our first decentralized experiment, but we hope to see more DAOs to come.
Thank you, Eva. Great. And I just want to double click into the community excitement you see on Twitter. A lot of excitement around the graph ecosystem, building on the graph, but also delegating, curating, and indexing as well. So kind of just wanted to share a few of these statements, and we will share this deck after this call as well. In Q1, a $205 million graph ecosystem fund launched. So shout out to Multicoin, Reciprocal Ventures, DCG, Hashkey, NGC, and Gumi Cryptos that are all involved in this ecosystem fund, really supporting developers building on the graph, but also protocols integrated with the graph. And then Fembushi also has since joined, so that fund size has actually increased since this announcement. If anyone is interested in getting involved here, let us know and we can get you all in touch. Graph Day and Graph Hack, we are guns a-blazing, really looking forward to this event. It's going to be the biggest event we've ever hosted. It's a 4-day event, so there will be a Graph Day conference with a lot of exciting announcements, and that will be followed by a 3-day hackathon. There's also a VIP party, so if you haven't been invited, let me know and we can potentially work on that. But really excited to see everything that's built out of this, all the networking. It'll really be exciting. It's a really exciting event for the Web3 ecosystem, and we're bringing together a lot of the protocol founders at this event. So really looking forward to it. And I know what many of you are thinking. I think the two most exciting things that everyone's waiting for is the date that we will sunset the hosted service. And trust me, there's no one more excited about that than us. We are working to get those chains supported on the decentralized network. And if you want to learn more about this, you'll have to come to Graph Day to find out more. And then also query fees showing the growth on the network, waiting on some GIPs here. But again, really want to invite you to come to Graph Day to learn more about these two pieces. And with that, I'll hand it over to Yaniv to share some thoughts. Let's make sure we unmute Yaniv.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, thanks. So yeah, we since the beginning, we had this vision that a decentralized network would be the fastest and most reliable way to organize all of this data for the decentralized economy, and that we could provide a service that's really better than a centralized hosted solution. And it's been really exciting seeing over the last few months that vision really coming to fruition. As more and more dApps are migrating to the decentralized network, and we're able to really see the quality of service. We're seeing all of that come true for a lot of dApps. The service on the network is faster, it's more reliable, and so it's been exciting to see that come to play. These decentralized networks and protocols, I think, are way more complex than I think is often appreciated. Seeing now kind of what it takes, we've been working on this for many years, and how many different participants, the indexers and the different economic participants, and the core dev teams, required to all build, operate, scale this kind of a network. The type of expertise that we and these other teams have had to grow, in areas like cryptography, distributed systems, economics. It's really a brand new kind of field, and all of this is serving to create an engine that is more scalable than a sort of thing that a single company can provide. And it takes a lot of upfront work and investment to grow the capabilities, to grow like the ecosystem that can support this kind of a thing. But it's really exciting that we have this engine now, and it's built, and it's operating, and it's running at scale. And so I think as we gear up kind of for this next phase, I think it's going to be surprising to a lot of people, I think, how quickly things can move from here. But I think, the people that have been involved in building this kind of an engine, I think, we know, I guess, what went into making that possible. I want to just kind of look at the last year to kind of see where we are in this sort of journey. As Tegan mentioned, the graph was really pushing for the Web3 vision, back when, a lot of people thought that, it was a pie in the sky idea. And I think, since the Graph Network launched over a year ago, and then, we saw NFTs, really blow up. There's been just a tremendous amount of interest in Web3. And I think that's been really great for bringing, capital and attention, into this ecosystem. But, we always have to kind of look at like, what are the fundamentals versus, what's the kind of, hype. And I think, as we're at a stage now where the infrastructure has mostly been funded. I would say that it's basically all been funded. The different protocols are at different levels of maturity. But the Web3 stack still, is not finished. The platform is still not live in a lot of ways. And yet we have all of these people trying to build around, trying to, figure out like, well, what is this Web3 thing, and what can we do with it? And I think it's really great that we have all of this interest, but I think it's also important that, we build the stuff the right way, and that, we help to kind of develop this Web3 thing into what it needs to be. And one of the big things that, we've consistently talked about is this difference between protocols and platforms. And I think, platforms are the old playbook. Right? This is like what venture capitalists and what startup entrepreneurs are very familiar with from the last 20 years, is that, of course, you want to own the customer, own the user, build a proprietary moat. And that allows you to lock them in, and that's how you capture value. And as traditional folks have come into the space, I think you see a lot more of that type of mentality because they're bringing what they know with them. But of course, that's not what Web3 is about. Web3 is all about liberation and giving control to the users, and you can't own the users and free the users at the same time. And so, we really believe that, protocols are the way forward, and that's where we need to be focused, and that is just going to look a little bit different than what people are used to. And so with Web3, we've got the infrastructure is almost ready. And the next, step from here is building out all of the different protocols that run at the smart contract layer, for example, that can run on top of this infrastructure, but that are fully decentralized. And then we don't need platforms on top of those to try to monopolize the users. And so I think the Web3 platform is very close to being ready. And that's a thing that we've really been focused on. Obviously, the graph is a really big component to that, but there are many other protocols. And I think when we put all of these pieces together, I think people are going to be surprised by how quickly things are able to change and move, because it's a really scalable kind of an architecture, and it's going to allow for just a tremendous amount of innovation. Luckily, we've been able to use the last few months as an ecosystem, as a protocol, us at EdgeNode to really, continue to bolster our foundation. It's hard to really appreciate just how many different participants and companies, are involved in the Graph ecosystem. And what it takes to have a really vibrant, decentralized protocol with all of those different independent contributors. But we're able to really see firsthand that this is a better organizational structure. It's going to be capable of creating a tremendous amount of change in a relatively short amount of time. Big things are coming, and Tegan already mentioned this, but if you want to see a lot of these kind of exciting next steps, I really recommend that everybody come out to Graph Day and Graph Hack. It's going to be a really special event. We want to see you all in person. Invite your friends. June 2nd in San Francisco. You'll want to be there. We can't wait to see you there. And thanks for being on the journey.
Thank you, Yaniv, and Caroline will share the link to Graph Day and Graph Hack. Do make sure you get your tickets before they sell out. Wave 1's already sold out, so Wave 2's going pretty quickly. But thank you, Yaniv. And before we dive into questions, I just want to share what you can help with. So really inviting your communities to Graph Day and Graph Hack. We actually created a discount code just for you and your ecosystem, your community, called GRT participants. So feel free to share that with anyone in your network. The decentralized network and migration, that's really a big focus. So anyone of your portfolio companies or friends that is still on the hosted service, encouraging them if they're building on Ethereum to migrate to the network. Hiring, there's a lot of hiring across the Graph ecosystem. I know the Graph Foundation is hiring a Web3 native general counsel. So if you know anyone, they are hiring for that role. At EdgeNode, we're also hiring for a general counsel. We're also hiring for a product marketer, and we're looking for the best writer in Web3. So if you know anyone, please do send them over to us. And then if any of your portfolio companies are building applications and not yet using subgraphs or the graph, please ask them why and then introduce us. And then if anyone's not connected to us, we always welcome introductions to press to help expand the knowledge around the graph ecosystem and Web3, and then inviting your community to become advocates. If anyone is very driven all across the world, they're welcome to become advocates within the graph ecosystem to rise up as leaders within the Web3 space. It's a great way to get started, and then help educate anyone coming from Web2 to Web3 on the graph ecosystem. So with that, we will jump over to questions. Caroline, do you want to read the ones that have come through so far?
Yes. So first question, with 4 core devs added over the past year, what is the path going forward to add more? And what problems might they be working on? As it seems so far, they all bring different skills to the table.
Sure, I can take this one. So we just released our Wave 5 grant blog post, and we have a few areas there we'd love to see some help. So first off, if you know any cryptographers or folks working on AI, we are looking for peer reviews for our ZK Snark research. This has been years of research over past 4 years now culminating. So really excited. And it can also have impacts outside of the graph. So, this is probably a larger deal than just, graph focused initiatives. I would say also with Firehose and getting more involved in how do we make that stack more accessible to new indexers. So, there are quite a few indexers getting their feet wet, but we'd love to see more because it is a bit of a newer component. So whether it's providing new tooling or documentation, anything that can really help get Firehose used more by indexers. I would say additionally, we're constantly looking for dev shop support for either new integrations with new protocols or new tooling. So if you are a dev shop and you're not quite sure where you want to fit in, but you have maybe DevOps backend or Solidity experience, we definitely have some space to have you contribute.
And for anybody that is interested in becoming a core dev, the best way to start that conversation is just to get involved. The core devs have monthly public calls. All of the repos are open source, and so people can really get started just by contributing and submitting PRs and building relationships with the teams directly. We're all, very accessible. And, when we find alignment with teams that really have the right kind of skills, then, we generally, it's a conversation that can arise kind of organically.
Okay, great. Next question. You've all been adding chains so fast, 30 over the past year. What does the progress to add more chains look like going into the future? Are you hitting a ceiling of growth, or do you plan to add more soon?
Yeah, no ceiling of growth. Honestly, if it doesn't exist within the graph ecosystem, it doesn't really exist in Web3. You need that holistic look into the entire Web3 and crypto space. And so there are many chains that are being worked on right now, and also protocols. So like Arweave at the storage layer is being worked on. Solana is being worked on, Polkadot, Cosmos. So really adding support quickly. When it comes to non-EVM chains. So Near was actually our very first non-EVM chain. And that work that was done on Near can actually be applied to other non-EVM chains, making it easier to add those chains and happen more quickly, which is exciting. And then EVM chains are a lighter lift and easier to add. It's really kind of a community and demand decision. So if there are any networks or layer ones, layer twos, protocols that you want to see added, let us know. Let the Graph Foundation know, let anyone within the Graph ecosystem know. And we'll of course take that into consideration.
Yeah, that's all right. And the first few non-EVM chains have taken quite a bit of work. We're also undergoing quite a bit of plumbing improvements to help with things like indexing performance. So a lot of this is related to like integrating the fire hose, and so some of those kind of re-architecture things have taken quite a bit of effort. But after the first 3-4 non-EVM chains, I'll go to production. It will be a lot easier to add more chains, and I think the vision for multi-chain support is that external teams in the future should be able to completely on their own build these connectors and add extensions, and the indexers can choose for themselves which subgraphs they want to index for which chains. And so if they want to be running full nodes on those different chains, all of that eventually will be able to happen, maybe even without the involvement of core dev teams. But for now, we have been involved. But we definitely, the graph is going. The desire is for the graph to support every L1, every L2, every storage network that has some reasonable level of security behind it.
Next question. In your opinion, with so much going on, what's the most exciting technology advancement that you've all been working on behind the scenes within the ecosystem?
Well, we have an announcement that I think is going to be coming out soon. So without getting ahead of that announcement, I guess what I can share is the problem that we want to solve, that we understand is kind of the number one pain point for developers right now is indexing performance. And so that's something that we've been working on for a very long time. We've shared various aspects of the solution to that. But what we're seeking to do is create truly massive improvements to indexing performance and to make subgraphs and building on the graph the best developer experience that you can get by far anywhere. I think we already have the best developer experience. The only pain point is the time that it takes to index new subgraphs. And so looking to make truly massive improvements there.
Yeah, and then I'll just add the Web3 stack kind of coming together. We're really looking forward to that, working really hard to unite that Web3 stack. There's actually a blog post that outlines a lot of the protocols that exist within that Web3 stack, and really kind of keeping that free of any platforms, as you mentioned. And we believe that Web3 will be ready for the masses by the end of this year. And that's when we'll see these really cool use cases of these new applications pop up on top of that Web3 stack.
Next question. What problems does it solve for the graph, and how will it affect the protocol and participant dynamics?
What problems does what solve?
We might need more clarity on this question. If whoever submitted it wants to share more clarity around what problems, what are we talking about here?
Okay, and next question. When will Web3 be ready for the world across all chains?
Yeah, so we are working towards kind of solidifying that Web3 stack by the end of the year. That being said, new technologies, new chains are coming out all of the time. So we'll see what kind of hits critical mass, has demand, and we'll continue adding those chains and support for those chains, throughout the test of time. And as Yaniv mentioned, we really want that to be permissionless so that anyone, anywhere can just add chains as they come out, or networks or protocols.
Next question. Love the DAO formation. Will there be more in the future? What would they do?
Yes. Well, I guess Eva could take this.
Yeah, so our goal really is to decentralize a lot of what the foundation oversees today out to the community. So we've had these 4 categories of grants: community, tooling, protocol, dApps, and subgraphs. And we have over a year of data now and working with the community on seeing what grants and initiatives are valuable to them. And so now we'll be trying to outsource really every component to the community. So starting with Graph AdvocatesDAO leading the community grants, but we hope to do this across all categories, and even start to include more folks in a lot of the governance, sort of technical governance decision-making as well.
Yeah, and just to share a little bit more about like how we think about governance. We believe both in, progressive decentralization and also governance minimization as principles. And, you want to decentralize these things and minimize these things as fast as you can, but not faster. And so, I think having things that maybe right now are done by the foundation move over to DAO ownership is a way of kind of, progressively decentralizing. And then taking away, functionality, let's say like upgradability or setting parameters and automating those things is, a way of doing governance minimization. And so, both of those things are ongoing processes. I think a hope would be that eventually, you really minimize the surface area for governance as much as you can, but where you have it, you have a system where many participants can participate, and we think that you still need quite a bit of experimentation on DAO structures, because I think token voting is something that we don't believe in. The graph doesn't use token voting. And I think figuring out the right ways to weight people's votes is something that is, an area of ongoing experimentation.
Thank you. And then it sounds like the question on the problem that it solves pertains to that tech advancement. So stay tuned for that announcement, but really the problem that it's solving is bringing the world to Web3, so that it's not just those within the crypto space, it's really everyone contributing to this ecosystem and global graph of data. Great. Well, I think that's all of the questions. Thank you so much for all of the great questions. We really appreciate it. If there are any other questions you have, feel free to reach out. Don't hesitate. And we will share this presentation and the recording after this call. So thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. Cheers, everyone.